fellow Guyanese. This morning I'm very happy to spend some time with you in going through the recent 7% increase in public servants' wages. As you know, this 7% comes with a number of other benefits that the government would have rolled out in the past year to enhance livelihood, to secure livelihood, and to ensure that our population has the capacity to withstand the many global challenges that we are facing as a nation. As you're aware, when we came into government, we met a COVID situation. We met a situation where the economy was in shambles. The productive sector were all underperforming and not performing at all. And we had to manage within this context. And today I want us to, I've seen a lot of so-called trade union leaders who are more political operatives. I would consider them political operatives. Because if you look at their attitude and behavior and their level of activism now compared to when the APNU and AFC was in government, you would see that they are driven by an agenda. And in this country, sometimes we do not want to call a spade a spade. But you have a president who is willing to call a spade a spade. And when you have people who are driven by a particular agenda, then they try to distort the facts, they try to distort the truth, and they try to manipulate information. So today, I just want to put a number of things into context. I'm not in the business of scoring cheap political points. I'm not in the business of misleading people. What I've seen since the announcement of this increase, however, is a concerted attempt destruction the APNU AFC caused in our economy, and more importantly, to distract them from the positive agenda that the government is pursuing. Most definitely, we can all conclude that between 2015 and 2020, there was a broken relationship between public servants as a result of the APNU AFC failure to honor various promises they made to public servants. They're now trying to create a new narrative. But I just want to spend some time today looking at what we inherited, looking at the narrative, and to bring the facts so that the Guyanese population can determine which government has done more, which government is more committed to the development of the public service, and which government understand what holistic development of the welfare of workers means. So now let us go back. Let us just rewind a little bit to when the APNU AFC was in government. There was a promise of a graduated and annual 10% increase. We never accomplished that. In the first year, for example, there was and if you look at the increase that the APNU AFC government would have given, the total value of that increase paid in 2015 was $917.3 million. Now I want you to understand these numbers because it is very important for us to understand these numbers. In 2015, the total value of the increase was $917.3 million. Now, the PAY, when you take out the PAYE that the APNU AFC government took back from the workers, so the total value of this increase was $917.3 million. When you take back the PAYE that the government took back from the salary increase, it was approximately $222.1 million you are taking back. So the net gain for the workers, the net gain was $696 million. $696.2 million, which is far less than the 5% in a net sense. So that's the first point I want to make and remind us of. And you must also remember that when the APNU AFC came into government, they came into government at a time when they inherited a buoyant economy. They did not inherit a situation which we inherited, a COVID-19 situation, an economy in shambles, the productive sector underperforming and totally out of production in some cases. This is what we met, and I'll go through some of that. But whilst they did this, let us not forget that the APNU AFC give themselves, the ministers, the cabinet members, a 50% increase in salary. They would want you to forget that. Now they so love the public servants. Now they so love the workers and the union members. Where were their voices then? Where were their voices and activism then? It was dead. It was dead because they had, it suited their narrative. It was dead because they have an agenda. And you cannot represent workers if you do so with an agenda. So let us not forget that 50%. Let us not forget that 50%. And then they're circulating in social media comments we made in Parliament at that time. And they're not doing it in the context it was made. They're splicing videos. For example, the Vice President was speaking about 50% in the context of what the ministers got. And using that as the basis, he was saying the unions should demand and be active. But instead the union went quiet, they went silent, they went dead. This level of activism was not there. You remember how that 50% was justified? To prevent their ministers from becoming corrupt. So I want to remind guys that not so long ago, this was the situation. This was the context. And that was not all. Let us take the example of a public servant earning $100,000. Let us just take that example of a public servant earning $100,000. What became of the disposable income? How effective was $100,000 as disposable income? Notwithstanding the fact that some categories of public servants only got 0.5% increase in their sliding scale, some got 1%. We forgot that it was a sliding scale. And some categories, the highly qualified public servants, were driven out of the system with a 0.5% increase and a 1% increase. They would want you to forget that. But this morning I want us to understand context. And that is why I am speaking directly to the population of this country. So the person with $100,000 had to deal with many other challenges in 2015 to 2019, 2020. What are some of these challenges? Let us begin with the issue of public servants who are on contract, like the doctors. And many doctors exited the system in that period because the government forced them off of contract. The government forced them off of contract and placed them on a permanent establishment, depriving them of benefits they were receiving under the contract. The 22.5% gratuity. And what was the result? We saw doctors exiting the system. It was equivalent to 22.5% cut in their wages. They would want us to forget this. But I'm just reminding you, because it is important that we do not allow people, we do not allow anyone to distort the facts. That was not all. Many financial hardships were imposed on the population and the public servants, of course, in the population. Let us take, for example, another measure that made vehicle purchase inaccessible for many middle-level public servants by banning the importation of vehicles more than 8 years old. You remember that? Can you remember that? That they banned the importation of vehicles more than 8 years old. In effect, what that did was made the purchase of vehicles inaccessible to public servants, men and women in uniform, in the healthcare system. But they won't want you to remember that. Remember, they also made home ownership for the public servants more expensive too, by reducing by half the ceiling on mortgage interest relief. You remember that? This amounted to hundreds of thousands of savings annually for many persons. And guess what? They cut that benefit by half. So they made home ownership more expensive by cutting that mortgage interest relief by half. This injustice was only corrected in the first months when the PP Civic returned to government. Do we remember this? Those two measures alone negated all the increases the AP and UFC would have put on the table. Those two measures alone that dissipated the power of the disposable income. So the disposable income was reduced to rubble under the APN. And that's just two measures. Let's look at some other measures closer to home. Let's say a public servant whose children were attending private schools. Remember what happened with them? They were penalized. If the public servants had children attending private school, they were penalized when VAT was introduced on educational services. You remember that? Yes. All the naysayers, the huff and puffers, the conscience of the people that are speaking now, they were silent. They were silent when the VAT on education was introduced. And what this did? This rendered private education more expensive and beyond the reach of many public officers. Oh yes. All that did was to make private education more expensive and beyond the reach of the public servants. At the same time, that was not all. They were not satisfied with this. So what did they do additionally? Additionally, they removed the school grant. The children of the public servants in the public school system were receiving the cash grant. They removed that also from the children. So uniform, transportation was added back to the salary of the public servant. So the net effect was that there was never an increase. In fact, there was a reversal. There was a reversal in the capacity of the disposable income available to the public servant. And what I'm giving you is the facts. My fellow Guyanese, I promise you that we'll be transparent in every measure. This is only our first year, and I'll show you what we have done. And all our commitment in the manifesto will be kept. Mark my words this morning. We don't hide from what we do, because what we do can withstand scrutiny. That is not all, my dear Guyanese. Let us remember that they did not only add VAT on education and take away the school uniform grant and the transportation grant. You must remember too that public servants, as all other Guyanese, bore the brunt of the tax increases and new taxes implemented by the AP and UAFC when they were in government. VAT on water, you remember that? Oh yes. Yes. Just a few years ago, you were paying VAT on water. VAT on electricity, you remember that? Oh yes. Just a few years ago, you were paying VAT on electricity. VAT on medicines and medical supply. You remember that? Oh yes. Just a few years. Even the boys remember it. VAT on medicines, remember that? Oh yes. All of this was introduced by them. That dissipated your disposable income. VAT on essential foods. All this crippled the spending power of the public servant and Guyanese as a whole. And you know what? You know how you can understand the effect? Let us go back to the records and see how many people built homes during that period. How many people accessed a new loan to do a business during that period? And compare that with just 1 year of the PP in government. You'll be blown away. Because now there is more disposable income in the hands of people to do more. Fact. Not fiction, fact. And that was not enough for them, you know. That was not enough for them when they were in government. Remember, they also shut down the sugar industry, sending home 7,000 workers. They fired 2,000 Amerindian CSOs. And they antagonized the Berbice River bauxite operations, which sent the people away. They closed shop and went away, and which resulted in thousands of workers in that region being laid off. That was still not enough for them. They closed down the call center in Linden, leaving more than 200 persons out of work. In 1 year, we have restored the call center, and by next year, it will almost double that 200 they sent home. We have restored jobs in the sugar industry. We're still not back up to the level. But we are forgetting that this is what we inherited when we came in. These are the facts. This is what the government inherited when we came in. So what we saw was a dismantling of the earning power of the Guyanese people. What we saw was a disposable income that was in effect zero. And as I said, you can go to the banking sector and review what took place during that period. The level of investment, level of home ownership, new construction, and you will see the story. Now it is only fair that we contrast this with the last year of the PP civic government. It is fair that we contrast it. And I wish to do so. So, in addition to the across-the-board 7% increase announced by my government, we must not forget that the PPP civic government took several initiatives to reverse the effect the APNU AFC measures had on disposable income. And I want to remind us of some of those initiatives that we took. That adds up. Remember the one-off payment of $25,000 made to all public sector employees? What was the net effect of this singular measure? Remember earlier, I told you the net effect of their 5% increase was $600+ million. This one measure, the one-off payment of $25,000 to all public servants, which affected 60,000 employees. You know what was the net effect of that? That placed $2 billion in the pockets of people. One measure wiped it out. 600+ million. One measure put back $2 billion in the pockets of people. The year-end bonus, remember that? Totaling another $1 billion. That was paid to frontline workers in the health sector. And the 2 weeks bonus for our men and women in uniform, the disciplinary forces. Do you remember that? Those who are jumping around to twist narrative, do you remember that? And we still are not at the end of this year. $400 million has already been set aside for frontline workers. And we still have announcements to make. And I'm looking at them in their faces now. Do you remember that? Don't allow your political agenda to drive and distort the reality. Let me continue. I'm not over. Let us use the same public servant with the same $100,000 who is now benefiting from a 7% increase in 2021, amounting to $84,000 annually. This is the 100,000, the employee earning 100,000. That same employee received a one-off $25,000. If that employee was a frontline worker, they would have received a further $50,000. Together, if the person was a frontline worker, the payment, this works out a payment of $75,000. 50 plus the 25, which is a 6.25% on their annual salary. 6.25% on their annual salary. Assuming that this public servant has 2 children, let's assume that the same public servant earning $100,000 has 2 children. They would now receive the reinstated cash grant for school children, which means they will receive $90,000 per child, which is $38,000 for 2 children. That adds up to a further 3.2%. 6.5% plus another 3.2% plus 7%. And this will continue to increase because our manifesto promise is to take it to $50,000 per child. So that continuous increase would also see a continuous increase in the percentage. So that's another 3.2%. Then let us assume again the very public servant earning $100,000, he has to pay his utility bills. Remember, we reverse the VAT on electricity, water, and data. So, assuming that the utility bill is at least $10,000 per month, combined, of course it can be more. But let us just assume it is $10,000 per month. That is another $120,000 annually that the public servant is saving. That is going back to the public servant pocket because of the government action to remove the VAT that was imposed by the APNU AFC. This now will work out to 1.45% annually. That saving would work out to 1.45% annually. In addition to this, let us not forget that we gave out a $25,000 COVID cash grant, which works out to another 2.1%. So, fellow Guyanese, what I've tried to do this morning is to present to you the factual position. As a people and as a country, we ought to be realistic. And I will give you, in a few moments, the reality that the world is confronting. The reality that the world is confronting in just a few moments. But it is very important that we understand the facts. Then I'm seeing the next narrative, a new narrative, that the budget had $10 billion for salary increases. How far from the truth? There's a line item that deals with wages and emoluments. Dr. Ashni Singh has time over time went at pain to explain that this is not only for salary increases. This is for adjustment of salaries during the year. People get promoted. New employees come into the system. People move along the scale. And let us not forget too, that we promised to do an adjustment along the scale. So that very person who may have a degree in economics and earning $100,000 versus someone with a degree in economics at another similar agency working for $120,000 would automatically have their salary move up by $20,000 in some cases. That is another 20% you're looking at. And this is for the specialized skill sets, the specialized educational sets that the country needs. That alone, if a movement like that occurs, is 20%. If you add up all the benefits, that is why we said we are not only concentrating on salary, we're concentrating on welfare too. Because the welfare measures put back more money in the pockets of the public servants, increasing the power of the disposable income. That is the reality. So whilst we are looking at this locally, let's understand the global context. Governments across the world have shifted their focus on preserving jobs. Many governments across the world has cut the public service. Their focus is not on salary increases, it's on preserving jobs, protecting their citizens against the pandemic, and safeguarding the well-being of citizens. That is the focus. In this country, we have not cut any jobs. We have not reduced time, hours of work. We have not reduced pay. We have done none of those, unlike what is happening in the world. Wage negotiations in some countries were suspended. Wage negotiations were suspended and workers were sent home. The United Kingdom, for example, imposed a wage freeze since 2020. Yes, this is the reality of the world we're living, where we have been giving so much to workers. The United Kingdom imposed a wage freeze since 2020. Even though they were hit with relatively high inflation. And not only did they impose a wage freeze, they've already made it clear that you wouldn't see a wage increase until 2022. Yes, fellow Guyanese, this is the world we live in. They will not see a wage increase until 2022. The average wage growth in the Euro area and the European Union, the whole European Union and the Euro area, the average wage growth were 2.1% and 2.4%. 2.1% and 2.4%. Let us look closer home in the CARICOM region. Just look around. Just go and read every single country position. You will see that some countries did not have an increase since 2015. Some saw their last increase in 2018. One or two had increases. And the maximum increase any of them would have had was 4%. Go and look at CARICOM. And some implemented wage freeze and limitation on hiring. That is the world we live in. This is the world we live in. So my dear Guyanese, our focus is on strengthening your disposable income. Our focus is giving back more to you, giving to your families, enhancing your welfare, improving your livelihood, making home ownership easier, building a strong, healthy, highly educated society, scholarships for you. In addition to the scholarship, we still have the commitment of making university education free. All of those measures we have to find resources for. So in a comprehensive way, I would say we have outdone most of, if not the entire globe. And I continue to be grateful for the public servants, the Ministry of Finance, for managing and bringing in a balanced approach to the development and advancement of Guyanese. We are in this together. We are stronger together. I appeal to the union to take off their political hat. Take off their political hat and put on the hat of reality, the hat of fairness, and in a comprehensive way, they too should applaud the government. I've spoken to many, many public servants who are fully on board. I say to all those in public service and all our workers in this country, do not be distracted. Our country is moving positively from strength to strength every day. And your government, your president, would ensure that all of you, all of us, are part of the strengthening, deepening, widening of democracy, freedom, prosperity, and the ability to live a life that is full here in Guyana. Thank you. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of Friday. Have a great weekend. And I thank you for allowing me in your space. Thank you very much.